Hello, my name is Ioanna Trafalis and I work for the Athens Institute for Education and Research, which is a world association for academics and researchers. We have started a new initiative of interviewing the participants that attend our many conferences in Athens to present their work. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Motala from Howard University, USA. Hello, Dr. Ziyad.
Hi, Ioanna.
Welcome to Athens.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, I would like to begin with your presentation at our conference. You present the paper, The South African Constitutional Court's Approach to Democracy, a unique contribution in comparative jurisprudence. Tell us a few words about this.
You know, the world in the last couple of months, I think it's fair to say, is in convulsions. We witnessed the phenomena of Brexit. We witness the election of Donald Trump. Actually, we can go back before. We can talk about Greece and the problems that you had in Greece in terms of your financial crisis and the like. There is a perception in many countries that democracy is not working in the interest of everyone, that it is working more in the interest of elites. When we go back to the debt crisis in this country, the prevailing perception among a large sector of society was that decisions were taken by technocrats within the European Union, who in turn were making decisions based on the financial markets without taking cognizance of the interests of the ordinary person, and that the ordinary person was not consulted in any of the choices that ultimately were made. Now, to some extent, you cannot defend some of the racism and the bad rhetoric that we have with regard to Brexit and the election of Donald Trump, but there is a perception that globalization, free trade, and the like has not benefited large pockets of the populations in these countries, and that what democracy really has entailed is the election of periodic elites who carry on making decisions in the interest of economic elites to the detriment of the ordinary person. So I'm talking about a decision of the Constitutional Court of South Africa, referred to as Doctors for Life, which I think offers a moment for reflection with regard to the central meaning of democracy. And what the Constitutional Court in the Doctors for Life case, or the majority of the Constitutional Court in the Doctors for Life case, expounded is a vision of democracy that says that representative democracy is one dimension of the Constitution. But throughout the lawmaking process, there is an obligation on the part of the lawmaker to constantly consult with the population, particularly those sectors of society that are affected by a particular piece of legislation. And that they need to consult them in a way that is meaningful, in a way that takes account of their views. It doesn't mean that they can veto the decision, but you've got to dialogue, and that enhances legitimacy and it strengthens your democracy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that case in relation to what I refer to as the convulsions in various parts of the world as a means to reinvigorate democratic theory and our understanding of democracy. And where else better than in Athens?
Yeah, it's true. So tell us a few words about yourself, your studies, your career, and whatever else you would like to add.
So I'm a professor of law at Howard University School of Law. I teach in the areas of constitutional law, international law, international business transactions, as well as comparative law. In addition to my teaching responsibilities, I also direct a foreign program that we conduct in Cape Town, South Africa. I've been directing that program for 22 years. This program runs over the summer in the United States, winter in South Africa. We take anything from 30 to 50 American students each year. They spend just over 5 weeks in Cape Town, immersing themselves in comparative and international law studies and international business law, as well as immersing themselves in the culture of South Africa. I previously also directed our graduate program, which I did for about 8 years. I gave that up some time ago. So that's in a nutshell my teaching interest. I originally hail from South Africa. I did my undergrad and my law degree in South Africa, and then I studied at Northwestern in Chicago, where I did my master's, as well as my doctorate. I've been at Harvard University now for 24 years, a wonderful institution in Washington, D.C. And wonderful students, wonderful program.
Okay. So you've been a law professor both in South Africa and in the USA.
I have not been a law professor in South Africa,
but you have.
But I do this program. I do this program in South Africa.
Okay, so tell us about the system of law in both countries. Which one do you find more effective? Like, what are the differences?
So, you know, as a comparative scholar, we don't indulge in the exercise of saying which one is better. I mean, two can be different.
Compare them.
Yeah, without one being better than the other. So I just want to make that clear. The United States is the archetypal example of a common law system. South Africa is very interesting. It is a hybrid between a common law and a civil law system. Probably one of the few exceptions in terms of a hybrid model, on account of the influences of two different colonial powers. First was the Dutch that brought Roman Dutch law, and then the British that brought the common law. But the common law and the common law methodology and the common law thinking is very well immersed and entrenched in the South African legal education and culture, as is the civil law model, because of that hybrid model. United States is a federal system. All power is not exercised from Washington, D.C. Considerable amount of decentralization. That means that we do have quite a number of different laws at the local level and a lot of experimentation at the state level. South Africa, although it has provinces, largely partakes of a character of a unitary state, where in the main the law applies at the national level, pretty much for the exception of minor things. But in the main, we talk about one court system, one criminal law, one civil law, and the like. I think the federal model works well for the United States, given its size, given its diversity, given its history. The South African provincial system is a consequence of a particular negotiation that occurred in 1994, and it emerged from that background and that experience, and I think it works for the South African context.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. So how were you introduced to ATNER, and what made you attend the conference?
I received an invitation from Athens, and I think I received a follow-up. The first time I didn't pay much attention to it, and the second time when it reached me, I clicked on the web and I looked at your program and I looked at some of the impressive work that you did, and then decided that perhaps I should volunteer my services for this program, and I'm glad that they have me.
Yeah, we're glad that we have you too. So what is the status of the educational system in the USA, and what do you think are the advantages and disadvantages, since you're in the US now? I mean, if you want to mention about South Africa as well.
Yeah. You know, the United States has the best and the not so best.
Yes.
And I think I can say the same for South Africa. And unfortunately, it intersects with race and class. You can go to parts of the United States where you live in an affluent area, where you will receive the best quality education in schools that have absolutely exemplary facilities, and come out with a quality education, but all of the critical thinking and skills that are important to function in the 21st century state. And you could be in an adjacent area, largely in the city, largely with minority populations, and come out with a starkly different reality in terms of education. And that is a major challenge. It's a major challenge. Unfortunately, the same reality exists in South Africa as well, where you can again have a very good quality education, depending on where you reside, go to a school that has all of the bells and whistles that one would expect from a first world environment, but then live in an adjacent area, largely in the township, where you would have overcrowding in schools, a lack of proper infrastructure, So that is a common problem in terms of schools. The other big crisis is the cost of education. Unlike the European context, where in many countries, I appreciate you get free education from cradle to grave, that's not the reality in either the United States or South Africa. Education is an extremely costly endeavor. United States has certain really superior institutions, cutting-edge research, cutting-edge immersion in terms of various areas of study, but it is expensive. And in many instances, students take out loans, they graduate mired in debt. So that is a problem. The cost of education is something that you don't have in the European context. In South Africa, same sort of reality as the United States. And the problem is really a little more dire in South Africa. You have a lot of student uprisings on account of an inability to be able to afford tertiary education, inability to pay. A lot of universities have been closed for a considerable period of time, or open and closed on account of student uprisings. And again, it's because of the economic and the financial costs associated with education.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.